there was a really slow fights on call. It was like fights on. So there was the spinning wheel of death, but we're live now. So there we go.
Yeah. No going
back. I think it's me this week. I know we made Bender do it and Vader did it last time. So I'll go ahead and do it. But welcome to Bro Chat 10.0. We got Swag Walker joining us, which is exciting. F-16 weapons officer, complete bro. I mentioned good dude all around, and Swag, a few people chimed in and said that's actually true. So I'd say that's pretty awesome. But thanks for joining us. We got Bender and Vader from the Kodiak Shack podcast. So if you haven't checked that out, you need to do that. But I think with all that, like, we just now turn it over to Swag, and we make Swag tell us about himself. So it's not a trap, Swag. You can tell us about yourself.
Yeah, you guys aren't gonna yell me away. All right.
No, that's fine. Tell us about yourself.
Rain. Well, first off, thanks, man, for letting me join in on the podcast. I'm excited to be here for sure and talk with you guys. A little bit about myself. My dad's in the Navy, so we kind of moved around growing up. Called Jacksonville, Florida, home, and then from there graduated high school down in Memphis, Tennessee. From there, I was an academy guy, and then went to pilot training, and then from there F-16 B course, and then I've kind of bounced around the CAF just a little bit, Kunsan to Shaw, and then out to Luke, and then back to Kunsan one more time because I didn't have enough fun the first time, so I went back for more. And then lastly, I just came back to Luke this past summer, and then I've been here since. So, and then now kind of looking at some different options, if you will, most likely some reserves or something like that. We'll see what happens from there.
That's strange. I haven't heard of anyone getting out.
Exactly. Yeah, I might have one of the guys in here talk me into it, so that's good. Just trying to follow some footsteps.
Vader?
Man.
I assume that was Vader.
It wasn't me. Yeah.
I mean, the elephant in the room really here is the fact that Vader has no mustache. What's up with that?
Right. Yeah. I did. I mean, TX complete as of a couple hours ago. So
congrats, man.
Yeah, thank you. So no mustache required anymore. I no longer need to be bulletproof. And I needed it sometimes because it was a lot of fun. And there were a lot of times where I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Why am I in a new airplane? It would be much easier to fly a plane I know how to fly. It was a good time. I had fun using a V3 radar, which is the F-15C radar. Has multiple variants, but the newest one is a AESA radar. Very, very capable, large array with a lot of power behind it. And I screwed it up on the settings the first time I actually flew with it. So they were like, why is your radar doing this? I was like, I don't know. And they're like, yeah, you screwed it up. So the first and only time so far I ever actually flew with a ESA radar, I messed it up wholesale. So it was pretty much not as awesome as it should have been.
Oh man.
I thought about it. Bender and I flew together when he was my safety observer in the demo. But you do the B course, right? And you got an instructor in the back seat and you get like a couple rides and then they sprinkle in a few here and there. But I mean, I think between like the B course and then when I was like getting ready to leave active duty was the time period between having someone who knew what was going on riding my back seat and when I did it again. And so I think, I don't know, I did something different. Bender's like, I don't do it that way. But it's, it's so interesting going to like a single seat and you're just like, and I mean, F-35 is the same. Like you could just like get the one course of academics of like how to do whatever. And then, choose your own adventure, like as long as you kind of get there. So I could see maybe messing up a radar or two.
Oh, yeah. I think if any of you are in my backseat in a Viper, I mean, you'd be like, this is a mess. Because it probably was. I've told you before, but in the B course, I did like any of my C model rides. They went pretty well. I usually would get pretty good grades. And then anytime I got into a D model ride, I would get what they call regressions. Like, what are you doing? Like, it all works out. Like, just relax. Like, don't judge me.
I feel like that's where your IP's in the back seat and he sees you like totally blind, but you're not saying anything yet. And you're just like doing the raster around the sky. Like, can I find his PPLI before I have to say blind?
He's on the other side of the canopy too.
We've all been there.
Yeah, as a B course instructor right now, I've seen that quite a few times for sure. I do have one good story about the ESA if we've got quick time for it.
Swag, we have nothing but time.
All right, perfect. So been flying the F-16 for quite a while and never got to fly an ESA radar. One with an ESA radar. finally get my opportunity. I'm flying with the 422, which is the F-16 test out at Nellis Air Force Base in Nevada. And we go to take off. I've got an ESA radar, a CDU, which is like a center display unit. And it's going to be an awesome ride. We're going out into the Nellis training range, and they've got some emitters, and we're doing some like destructive suppression enemy air defenses. So it's going to be an epic ride. Turns out, though, I'm having issues with Link 16. So I'm not able to geolocate and help the formation. And then I take off, and it's one of the weird weather days, and I take off, and I get FCR fail. So the FCR fails now. The ESA radar, my one opportunity to fly with one in the F-16, and it might be my last, potentially. It fails on me on takeoff. I do multiple power resets, never comes back. My HTS or my Link 16 doesn't work, so I'm not able to like help out with the destructive mission, if you will. And then my targeting pod wasn't displaying correctly on the center display unit, so I felt like a kind of like worthless.
You feel like a C model pilot.
Yeah.
A chunk of metal in the sky, not doing a whole lot for anybody.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
At least when I'm in the cockpit there. Well, yeah, well, I'll get into my last flight in the TX. So the F-16 kind of does this too at the formal training course, where the students will get like a top off BFM flight, because they'll do like 5 months between BFM and then the end of the course. So in a TX, it's a lot more abbreviated. But I also get the kind of top off BFM in the C model, but it is different because in the C model there's a lot of different game plans. Like when you have rudders that you can actually use to maneuver, and you can use AOA to kind of cause more problems. So when you're initially starting, you don't really do these. It's called a clam for a defensive maneuver, and so you don't get to do them initially. And then what you get is this top off BFM where it's like a full up. Like the cuffs are off and the eyepiece fighting full up, and you're supposed to fight as full up as you can. So I'm flying with Ghost, which Rain and Bender, you both know him from your FAPE time, right?
Oh yeah, old Ghost.
Yeah,
Great
great dude. Yeah. Oh yeah. See, there we go.
He
And
was also on Kadena when we were in Masala, so we actually flew exercises with him in Guam and stuff. Yeah.
well, and we would go. I mean, Guam. We'd go to Alaska. We'd see him there. Like it was just all over. So Ghost and I are sitting there. It's very, very casual. I mean, instructional, but casual, like last sortie in the TX brief. And he's like, yeah, we'll go out, we'll fly, we'll trade offensive and defensive looks. So we'll do like a 6,000 foot offensive look for you, 6,000 foot defensive, and then we'll do 3,000 foot fights and swap. And so he's like, yeah, I'm not that good at BFM. And in the F-16, it's like it's a weird statement. Like nobody's like, I'm good or bad. Like there's some guys who like rake with the gun, but I mean, if you can pull G's, you can like do BFM in the F-16. So I was like, oh, okay, yeah, he's not that good. Turns out he murdered me aggressively. So, and we're doing, you're supposed to do this thing called a min radius rudder turn, which you kind of like put a lot of AOA on the jet, you step on the rudders, you ease off the AOA, and you like, in your imagination, you're like flat plating the jet like some Raptor demo. You're really like aggressively nose low. You're trading a ton of altitude for nose position. So I'm doing this. And as I'm doing this, I'm like stomping on the rudder and thinking I'm creating all these problems for him, like looking out the window like, oh man. And what I realize is as my nose tracks across the sky, he is effectively on my turn circle and pointing his nose in lead. And I'm like, what am I supposed to do? And as I'm thinking, what am I supposed to do here? He's like, track. And so I'm in the middle of my defensive maneuver, and he just guns the heck out of me. And I was like, gosh, I am worthless. Like I'm hitting all new lows here. And it was a fun sortie, even though I was demoralized after being just murdered aggressively in the air.
I think the problem is not flying something with two engines, a fighter that is, but having watched Top Gun, I mean, are you not doing enough split throttles? I mean,
that was actually most of the times that was actually my split throttle sortie. So it's like, hey,
Okay.
You're a big boy now. You can use split throttles. And what ended up happening was I do all the things and I pull like in this case, it was the left throttle. I pull the left throttle back And then I just kept pulling it back because the whole time the jet's just kind of flying straight. And I'm like, well, this isn't what I want. So I just keep pulling the throttle back and back and back and back. And I'm like, nothing is going on. And most of the time it's like I have a point in space where I want a input to happen. And then like 4 seconds after, I actually make the jet move, and it goes pretty poorly for me. So there's that.
It's always fun. Did you guys have anyone in IFF that shut the motors down doing like fighting? Even in the Viper, like he was a FAPE with us. He'll go unmentioned. It just happened. He shut the motors down fighting. And I remember in Swag and Bender knows like the 920, the 20th fighter wing, fancy tail jet. I had that doing demo, and I was doing the throttle check before I started one day. I'd just gotten it back from the gamblers who had a week of, or 2 weeks of BFM, and I just do the test and like rip the throttle right to off. I was like, oh, well, that would have been a lot of fun had you been out there fighting and ripped it to idle and just shut the motor off. So,
Yikes.
so whoops.
Yeah.
I
Swag,
had
anybody at the B course over there?
There was
Shut the
one
motor
back.
off?
Yeah, there was one back. I want to say it was right before I got here, 2018-ish, I think. And he probably had 15 flights in the F-16 at that point. He was a student, and shuts the motor off. Was able to restart it after executing his like critical action procedures. Turns out like a working motor, even when you shut it down, it starts right back up. And so didn't realize though that he was the one that shut it down. So he thinks he's got potentially a bad engine. They go to like the closest emergency airfield, which is Lake Havasu. The poor thing about Lake Havasu is it's kind of like high density altitude. So your landing distance is a little bit longer and whatnot. And so he's flying this like simulated flame out landing in case the motor quits out on him again. And he's got a lot of energy. So what he ends up doing is on final, he's just got all this excess energy. So he's still floating down the runway, and it's a short runway and it's high density altitude. He finally touches down, but he's still at like 180 knots with like, I can't remember the exact, but he's with very short runway remaining. And he had a working engine, so he could have gone around, but realized that there's a whole complicated, lots of other things that were going on in the sortie, if you will. But his instructor, good on him, who's watching this, like sees it at the end. He's like, hey, you need to get out. Like, you're not going to be able to stop the jet by the end of the runway. And tells him to eject, and he ejects, and he graduated B course, and he's out there flying in the CAF still. So, which is awesome. So we do make mistakes for sure, but yeah, that was one of them up here at Luke.
Maybe I'm the only one, but I feel like more times than not in the F-16, we have caused more Class A's by a precautionary SFO. Like, hey, let me do an SFO just in case the motor quits, and we put a jet off the end of the runway, which is why I think Holloman started doing touch and go SFOs for the IPs. Like, you could do them whenever you want, and the students, it was part of the syllabus, because I think the reality is, I don't know if everybody uses it, but there's that like, hey, crossing the threshold at 190 knots or whatever. And it's like, that's like 50 knots of extra smash, depending on your fuel weight. Like, I don't think I want to cross the threshold with 190 knots, but maybe that's just me. I don't know. I'm a C model guy now, so I don't know that.
Yeah, you got an extra
Two
engine.
engines.
Yeah.
Hey, there are a couple questions. You guys want to answer a few of those?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
This is the first one from Don. And I think pretty simple. So this is a softball one. Do you guys have requirements, something / training that are traditions, i.e. the mustache? So Bader, it might be appropriate for you to answer this. Like, is there a formal training program where you get all this?
Yeah, no, I think, well, actually, I guess IFF. So Introduction to Fighter Fundamentals. So after you finish pilot training, you get awarded a fighter, whether it's an F-16, 15, 22, 35, A-10, one of those. You're going to go to Introduction to Fighter Fundamentals. And there is where you transition from just flying airplanes to like employing airplanes as weapons and like doing tactical things. And in that, they also teach you how to be a wingman in a fighter squadron. So they teach you some of the culture. You're going to sweep the floors, you're going to take out the trash, you make coffee and corn, and your responsibility is to like do that because you're lucky to be a guy who can even sweep the floors in a fighter squadron at that point. And so then they teach you things, like, hey, when you go to combat, and a lot of this is like holdovers from like Robin Olds and stuff, where guys back in the day grew mustaches kind of as like not the nicest statement to their leadership. But now I mean, most people grow, I guess most guys grow mustaches when they deploy. And then, and then I normally, whenever it's like some, training that I'm going to do, some TDY, I'll normally grow one just because I think it's fun. And the wife hates it. So that's also cool.
Earning points.
Yeah.
Swag, I think this is a softball question for you as a weapons officer, which is another one about that here in a second. But when you guys break the sound barrier, do you feel it or do you just know it from your sensors?
Yeah, the bummer is yeah, you don't really feel it at all. So you're just looking through, and I remember the first time that I broke the sound barrier, you're just like looking in the lower left portion of your heads-up display, and then the thing counts from 0.99 to 1.0, and then goes 1.0 on. You're like, all right. Your instructor in the back seat is like, all right, we broke the sound barrier, your speed of sound, and you're like, oh, that was it. Like, where's the boom? And that everybody down beneath you is hearing the boom. And then depending upon how low you go, you could damage things, potentially windows breaking and stuff like that. I've heard there's some great stories of people doing flybys at like the Air Force Academy way back in the day, and they would like break the speed of sound at like 1,000 or 2,000 feet and then blow out the windows of like the dorms and stuff like that at the academy, which is pretty awesome.
America.
Mm-hmm.
This is another one for
I got a follow-up question there.
Okay, yeah, go for it. Yeah, go.
Yeah.
So Rain, who's been the fastest? I want to know. It's probably Rain, but let's hear it.
Do you want me to go first?
Yeah.
I've been Mach 2.05.
Okay, there you go. You win. Yep. That's not even close.
Hold on, let me think. Yeah, no, not fast enough.
Yeah. It helped me having a demo jet, and you're like, I just need to go fly this thing, and it's kind of scary going that fast. I'll be honest.
What was your indicated at that point, or where were you at for altitude?
I mean, I was at 49,000 feet.
Yeah.
So you're like, if I have something happen, and I think Bender, you and I, did we do it coming back from Myrtle Beach show where we went out, like we had to burn gas and we did a little drag race, but we were in like the mid or high 20s. And I felt like we were bumping up against the 800 knots. So like the wind rush at 770 knots. You're like,
I thought the thing was going to crumple like a empty soda can. Is what it sounded like. That's what I haven't even gotten close. I think at one point, what was the normal speed? That it was like 1.6, right?
0.6.
Yeah.
So I think I did 1.55 and it was terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Up at 49, it's not as bad. It's not, as loud, but you have that rapid decompression like piece. And I mean, again, I guess you are going 20 miles a minute.
Just do it once.
Yeah. Well, did the nose, because I've noticed that at least in the F-16 in Misawa, you'd be Mach 1.1, 1.2, and the nose would kind of just hunt a little bit. Like you'd notice the nose, like the rudder trim would just not keep up. I can only imagine if you have something like that at like 1.8 or 2.0. Oh man, that's where I would be like, this is uncomfortable. You feel like you're just going to like rip off into, just a cloud of an explosion. But
I mean, there are the stories of the guys who punch out at like, whatever, 1.5 and then 30 surgeries later, like put back together again somewhat.
Yeah.
Tom Cruise did it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Mach 10 ejects, movie's over.
Yeah. Well, he was at like 90,000 feet, so maybe he was chill, Yeah. There's not much air up there.
Yeah, there's no resistance up there, so it's fine.
I would always make this joke. I half believe it. That if you eject above 45,000 feet, that the rocket motor will you'll just keep going. Like, you're like, oh no, think if you just, you're waiting for man seat separation and you just see the earth kind of keep going. This is
bad.
not good.
This is bad. Swag, what's a weapons officer? Apparently, I Lick Rocks, which is an awesome username. It's a little confused. You're not a pilot.
No, I am a pilot. Yep, a weapons officer is still a pilot. So essentially, what a weapons officer is they go to the weapons instructor course out at Nellis Air Force Base. It's about a 5 to 6 month course. They do 2 times a year, and then each kind of platform. So each plane or each like what would you call it, job, if you will. So they have like intel weapons officers and stuff, and they've also got maintenance weapons officers and all kind of different jobs, if you will, that you can go to the weapons instructor course. And essentially that is like the premier course, if you will, for the Air Force. It's kind of similar, if you will, to Top Gun in a way for the Navy. And so it's that 5 to 6 month course. And then what you go out there and do is you try and be the best that you can at your platform. And then at the very end, after they spend about 3 to 4 months just working on your platform, me flying the F-16 in this case, then they bring all the different jobs together and all the other different platforms together. And then we fly for about a month together, kind of working in hand to take down like whatever the most current toughest mission is. And we'll all fly that out in the Nellis training range. And they've got a great range where they've got lots of emitters and things that can replicate different surface-to-air missile sites from different countries. So that allows us to train against them and also work together just as if we were going to do when we would like deploy during World War III or IV, or whatever it ends up being. So that's my kind of quick rundown of it. It's a fun course.
Swag is like the smartest one. So that's weapons officers at the pinnacle. And there's just the rest of us.
I just made it through. I got lucky. Got lucky for sure.
How was your experience with your first weapons officer? Did you have a good experience or a bad experience?
Yeah, I sure did, man. I had a awesome experience. It was actually while I was out here, I was in the B course, and a guy named Ghost, a different Ghost, F-16 Ghost, he was the weapons officer for the 310th at the time, 310th Fighter Squadron. So the weapons school, like, kind of goes by like three values, if you will, like humble, approachable, credible. And those are exactly like what Ghost was, and like to the T. And the approachability I thought was extremely huge, especially as a young guy who just came out of pilot training. You know, I could barely spell F-16 at that point, and I'm just trying to, learn as best as I can from him. And he's spending the extra hours, and then also just asking me about, personal life and whatnot. It didn't always have to revolve around flying. It's also like, how do you interact just on a day-to-day basis as a fighter pilot and as a human being, and being a great bro that he is. So that was kind of the impression that started out with the weapons officers. And then I definitely had multiple that I really enjoyed beyond that kind of continued my motivation to become one. And then there was definitely one or two, though, that stick out on the other side of that, if you will. But that happens. Yeah. How about yourself?
Yeah, Bender and I were super lucky when we were my B course patch was awesome, and then we got to Misawa, and I think that kind of just like colors your perspective of patches. I've met people who their first patches they just did not get along with, and then from then on they were like, I'm not going to weapons school. And then Bender and I were both, at least I'm a bum. Bender's not a bum. He chose to focus on family probably, but neither of us went or attempted to go. And but I mean, we both respected the heck out of patches because we had nothing but touchdown patches at Misawa. And
yeah, you guys did.
Yeah. And it's, I mean, lethal dudes. Like you go out, there's just something about like in the fighter community, when you go out and whether it's dogfighting or you're doing, defensive counter air, offensive counter air seed, and like you have a good sortie and your patch just destroys, and you're like, gosh, he is good. You just respect him for it. So yeah, I've always respected patches because they just see a fight that the rest of us don't get to experience at WIC.
Yeah. To this day, if Jigdo Good were to call me back, Bender, I need you to re-enlist in the Air Force. You're coming with me to freaking Kunsan for 2 years. Like, say goodbye to your family. I'd be like, all right, here we go. Let's go.
Yeah.
Call me too. Yeah.
We'll send this to the wives. They'll be super happy about that.
Yeah. She doesn't watch this. Her least favorite thing in the world is to hear me and my fighter pilot friends talk about flying. So no way she's tuning in.
And it's like, you gonna go do your girl gab? I'm like, yep, sure am.
My wife finally told me, she was like, I'm listening to an episode. Like it was such a milestone event that she actually reached out and was like, I actually listened to you talk for an hour, which is a new thing. So that's good.
That's rather impressive since she probably hears you talk all the time.
I assume she fast forwarded through the majority of the episode.
Just confirm you sound
Mark
dumb.
as played.
Yeah.
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 See, I listened.
Uh,
It counts.
yeah.
Oh man. Swag, what's the best part of the B course? What you probably have some like amazing B course stories of just like either shenanigans or just really rewarding seeing like students grow, yada yada yada. But I'm sure there's like some stuff that you're just like, one, I'm surprised that kid's still alive. And then or that was really inspiring. I feel like I've really done a great job.
Oh yeah, man, it does go in some wild waves. We've got what's crazy about it is how quick that some of them are already back instructing. Like I've already hit my like first 2 or 3 kids that they were graduating the B course when I showed up here as an instructor to teach them, and I flew one of their rides, and I'll never forget it because it was like I think the first night ride that I'm flying with a B course student. He's on my wing. We're doing this 4-ship 4v2. So we're going in to kill 2 red air and then also dropping our bombs, our simulated weapons at this point. It's at night and we're just starting out. We're doing the admin phase right as we get into the airspace, and we kind of do this G warm up where we do like 2 90-degree turns just to make sure like our G suit, which is what we wear to kind of keep blood flow up in our blood flow in the upper portion of our body, so that way we don't G lock. And during the first G turn, I say in place 90 right, and then he turns left, and he's on my right side. And as I look across, like we both cross like about 700 feet from each other. This is at the beginning of the sortie, and I'm like, oh boy, okay, like knock it off. We stop what we're doing. And sure enough, like he bounces back from that, like has a pretty decent sortie, but he was obviously like, I could have sworn you said 90 left. And we would go back and obviously look at the tapes. I mean, mistakes happen like that. It obviously scared the crap out of me from there. And I, you just have to like really, every time it forced me to like stare at the guy, regardless of what you say, you got to go out there and look at it just to make sure, because they're getting task saturated and you don't want to be task saturated yourself as the instructor. So you've got to like find ways to make the scenario challenging enough for them, but you know enough of what's going on so that way you're paying attention to them, but also you want to challenge yourself at certain aspects too, because you don't want to just do the same thing every single time. So it's a unique balance of trying to instruct, get yourself some reps, if you will, but obviously the focus is no longer on me anymore. It's all on the other guy. So that has been probably the most unique thing. And so now that kid he's already back here. He just finished his instructor upgrade a couple months ago, and so he's now out on the line. And we've talked in the bar, and he right when he came back here, he's like, I'll never forget the story, or I'll never forget the time of when we almost collided together at night. Oh, boy.
When you were his IP, did you turn into him just to see if he was looking? Like, got you back. That exact thing is why I do I used to do all my first turns away from the wingman. Like, nope, if you're on my right,
exactly.
I'm going
There's
left.
no way. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
No matter what.
Yeah, it's
I need to
crazy.
start thinking about that. That's a good point.
And that's usually where it happens, is like the admin phase, like the stuff like the McIntyre midair from a couple years ago, like that was in the admin phase. Benign stuff like tactical intercept, so stuff that for those listening that we really don't even think about, it's just blocking and tackling sorties, going out there running the radar. But that's where like it's going to come and bite you, because you spend all the time doing the tactical talk and focusing on that you like whatever. Going to and from the airspace is putting your pants on to go to work. So I don't know. Yeah. Like we all know pyro, like that was an admin phase of flight, So yeah, it can bite you.
And it's interesting that in the 5th gen, they, for a little while there, like a year ago, they were like, we don't need IFF anymore for the 5th gen guys, because it doesn't apply tactically. And it doesn't really apply that tactically, but it freaking applies to the admin like crazy, because in the F-35, we don't fly that close together tactically, but going to and from the airspace, which is half the sortie, is done, a mile away from each other. So we have like trying to get a 4-ship of F-35s back together with guys who haven't spent time like doing that stuff. It's, that's the dangerous part of the sortie, because there's F-35s coming from everywhere and nobody knows who to look for. And so I think the 5th gen guys need IFF probably more than anybody else does, just to like get that solid foundation of the admin, and then they can go do their, 10-mile formations or whatever. But yeah, it definitely gets sporty like that if people aren't used to like looking outside. Today I flew out to the airspace in a block, which we don't normally do. So we had block 19 to 23. So I was a mile and then 1,000 feet stacked. And it was like being back in the Viper. It was awesome. Like, this feels so good. It just feels right to like look down at your like wingman's down there a mile away.
Are you now the old F4 like Vietnam driver who like wants his wingman just to like be welded to his wing?
Yeah, but they're not. So
Bring
I don't worry
fourth
about it too
gen
much.
baggage.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll be back at the rate that we go back to 4th gen tactics. The F-35s will be flying tactical formations in a couple of years.
Oh, that's great.
Hey, quick, because this is burying the feed. I think this is a good one. It's, do you guys have any advice for a high school senior trying to get into ROTC and compete for a pilot slot? Swag, did you do ROTC or are you Academy guy?
Yeah, I was an Academy guy.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'm just going to remove you from this right now.
Yeah.
Do you guys got any advice? Vader, Bender, Swag?
I mean, Bender, what do you got? And I'll go after you.
I don't know. It's not, yeah. I mean, I'd say go for it. That's like the biggest advice. There's going to be a lot of obstacles people will put in your way. They'll be like, hey, you can't be a pilot if you have bad vision. You can't be a pilot if you have I don't know. There's like a tons. In fact, even when I got into ROTC, the ROTC like admin staff was like, oh, you can't do that. You can't do that. They didn't really know. They just had heard that. Turns out I could do all the things that they said I couldn't do. And then thankfully that led to a pilot slot for me. So my number one piece of advice would be like, do not take no for an answer from anybody in recruiting, from anybody in their ROTC. There is a yes to everything pretty much. So if you just kind of have that mindset, I mean, you got to do a lot of your own due diligence. So don't suck. But if you want to do it, it's doable. So just make it happen.
Yeah, I think the Air Force officer qualification test, I think it's AFOQT, is a test that you're going to have to take. And I mean, I was a terrible student and I did just fine on the test. And it's just like general, I don't know, I think it's like high school level stuff. So it's not crazy. Obviously, you're going to go to college somewhere and take those tests and then spend the time in ROTC. If you want to get a engineering degree while you're in college, then do that. If you don't want to be an engineer, you don't have to. I was a geography major just because I just needed the degree. So you don't have to be an engineer. And, you know, some people will say like, oh, you need to be an aeronautical engineer to be a pilot. You don't have to. And if you can go be a history major and get a 4.0, that's probably better than being like a C- student as an engineer. So that's what I would recommend.
Swag, what do you think?
The one thing I would say is what I've kind of like slowly realized throughout the Air Force career is like having honestly a mentor or somebody that you feel confident that you can go in and talk to like once you get there. So I'm not sure about the trying to get into ROTC, but once you're in ROTC, if you can find that like senior or that junior who's already got a pilot slot or is looking to get one, and then pick their brain about like what specifically did they do in the unit to like kind of like build the path to get there. I find that like just learning about the process is like always super confusing, and there's just so much data out there that sometimes that just at least getting that knowledge out there early of like what you might need to start doing and start thinking about will help kind of drive that success if you got that mentor that's there to help you.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. What do you have, Vader?
Oh, I was going to say, Swag kind of jogged my memory on in ROTC, they have 4 pilot slots. Things are weighted differently. So your academics play a big part, your fitness scores. So you need to stay fit. I mean, if you're going to fly jets, especially fighters, like you should probably have your fitness squared away. But if you get a 90 plus 100 on your fitness score, that goes a long way. If you'll go to field training, which is like a month of think boot camp, but way easier probably. And you're going to go to that. So if you can stratify yourself, not only in ROTC, but at field training, all that stuff just helps. None of that stuff's going to hurt. So.
Yeah. I think also like being well-rounded. So pick something, pick a couple things you really like, but you're being judged on being an officer first, a leader. You also have to have a good GPA, but again, like I always thought, like if you were in R, so you assume you get into ROTC, and then you did, one or two extracurriculars inside ROTC because there's clubs and things like that. Maybe you pick one of those and you just do it really well. And over the years, you take on more leadership inside that club, et cetera. But you got to be involved. You got to show up. And I think all those things, from the GPA, being well-rounded, a good officer, good PT score, once you're in ROTC, all those things are going to be scored together, like the AFOQT. I should guess it's a Picksum score. That's like the combination of your GPA, Air Force Officer Qualifying Test, PT test, whatever the video game test is. It used to be the BAT test, like eye-hand coordination. But I think like half of that score is subjective, and that's where your commander ranks you amongst everyone else. So if you're not a good dude or dudette, you won't get as many points. So there we go.
Hey, Rain, I saw it's on the one of the statements. It's Andre. It says I'm Shepherd bound soonish, and then to the 38. Do you see this one?
Yeah, I just saw that one. That's
Yeah. If you were building your dream sheet today, knowing what you know now, what is your top 3? There it is.
Bam, found it.
Yeah, that's a good one. I'll go last because I brought it up.
You found it in the comments, although you didn't click it. I had to go find it and click it. So
Oh yeah, I should have clicked that.
That's how this works. We just click something and it brings it up.
yeah, just like that. It's like 5th gen stuff. Bender.
That's too much
Not when I click
responsibility.
it. It doesn't work when I click it. So
Yeah. Oh, maybe it's because
respect.
I'm one of the producers.
Yeah, yeah. Welcome. You need to get that level of clearance. It's
Mhm.
touchscreen or a laser plane, as we discussed with Billy the
Yeah.
last time. So
yeah,
All right, swag. Send it.
swag. Yeah, go swag.
Man, I would say, I mean, for sure the clear winner is going to be the F-16. That'll be number 1 for sure. It's got a long, I think it's got if you're Shepherd bound now for your timeline, yeah, you could fly that for quite a while, and it's getting a lot of upgrades. The mission sets are all awesome and incredible, and it's got quite a few upgrades. Plus, it's just a really fun aircraft to fly, and all 3 of these guys can definitely attest to that. Probably second, based on what I know now, I'd probably go F-35, and then my last, I'd probably go F-22. I think single seat to keep them all together, and then F-35 over F-22, multiple mission sets there. And from what I understand, the F-35 is a pretty awesome aircraft to fly, and same with the Raptor. So, I mean, that'd probably be my top 3.
can I spice this question up and be like, what would be your dead last?
Ooh,
Out of
what were
fighters.
you thinking?
Not
Oh
if we
yeah,
want to keep our audience. Come on.
Well, I mean, we abandoned the Strike Eagles. They're
Yeah.
out. We already like last week
Did you hear
destroyed
that
them.
last
So
one? Yeah.
feel free to bash Strike Eagle community because they no longer listen.
Last one. Okay, give me 1 sec for that one. Is it?
The
Are
answer's-
you
the
saying
answer's
fighters?
Strike Eagle, but yeah,
Yeah.
this is
Yeah,
great. It's a great plane. I'm kidding.
It is a great plane. We flew
Yeah.
with them today. It was
Super capable. Yeah.
yeah. You definitely want them there. First of all, they're not LO. They're just this giant RCS blooms. So something else is going to shoot at them first, which is great. And then today, like I got to gun one at the end of a DCA blow, which is the best. But as I was closing in, it's a big airplane, and then I just could see I was close enough to see the back seater just turn and look, and then call the brake. I'm like, oh, this is awesome. I actually see this person like turning around to. I mean, they were too late. They broke way too late. So it was really fun. So, anyways, there's a lot to appreciate about Strike Eagle. Plus, I think their loadout was 7x1. Like we had missiles. They shot like 13 missiles that got defeated, and still took home like freaking 8 missiles at the end of the ball. I'm like, dang, that alone there's some cool stuff. Yeah.
So Bender, what's your list?
I don't know. It would depend the day. If I knew the future, like if I knew, for instance, if I knew how I could string my assignments together, I'd go Viper first, get an assignment in the Viper because it's awesome, and then probably go to the F-35 after that. If I wasn't sure I could get to the F-35, I'd probably go F-35 first, a Viper second, and a Raptor third is how I would probably order that. I think probably all of us have a little bit of Raptor MV. I don't want to do the mission sets. Like I don't want to be like pigeonholed into only like the air to air or the what do we call it, air dominance or whatever.
Whatever Vader's
So
doing
the
now.
F-35 is the better option for sure. But I wish I had 2 motors that could thrust vector and send me to the moon without any effort. Like that would be awesome.
That's tough. Why do you pick the 35 over the Raptor, you think? Is it just because of the mission set?
Yeah, I want to be. Yeah, Seed is the best mission there is.
Yeah.
Like no doubt.
That's true.
So I want to do that mission forever.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I don't want to sound like cliche, but I think, again, like the Viper, that's the only thing I've known. But then hearing all you guys talk about the F-35 and kind of like the future, like Seed is a lot of fun to do. Doing Seed and the Viper was a lot of fun. So I imagine doing Seed and the F-35 would be a lot of fun. And then obviously flying the Raptor and just doing stupid maneuvers would be a lot of fun as well. And then I'll be a man and I'll answer it. The Strikey will be my last choice. So there you go.
I think I'm going to be controversial here. The A10 would be my last choice.
Oh,
So there you go. It's
Bender
heavy.
doesn't like going slow.
It does
It
have
is
a
slow.
gun. Yeah, I don't like going slow. I
Did
don't want to
you
be like
know-
left out of the fight. That sounds terrible.
Yeah, well, that's like the F-16 and the F-15. That's pretty much everyone.
Yeah, I was
going
going
to
to say, yeah.
So-
Bender, you're the only one there in the fight. We're all back there.
Yeah. And I'm just a reservist, so I'm not even in the fight.
Yeah. Yeah. See, I think I was totally settled on the Raptor initially because I just think the Raptor would be, I mean, handsome airplane. Like you can't say the Raptor is not a good looking jet. And the Raptor, I mean, again, I'm an air dominance guy, so I appreciate that the Raptor is an air dominance platform, but I do like Seed. I was doing OCA today. I was missing being able to just be a Seed guy to do the air to air and the Seed, but so probably Raptor 35 Viper. And I think growing up in the Viper was awesome because I think, as Bender said, growing up in a 4th gen platform that doesn't really have any sort of fusion, it makes you really understand all the information that's being provided to you because your brain is where all that information comes together. In 5th gen, and Bender can speak to this more than I can because I've never flown it. I understand that 5th gen kind of just brings all that information and just kind of displays it to you. So you don't have to really have that understanding or that situational awareness as aggressively as a 4th gen fighter. So I think growing up in 4th gen and moving to 5th gen is probably a really, really good idea.
Yeah,
I like it.
Agree.
Okay,
All right,
so
Swag.
here we
Swag,
go.
what's your
Swag,
last
last one.
Yeah. What's your least favorite,
Oh.
Swag?
Oh, least favorite? I mean, it would have to be the Strike Eagle.
There we go.
I just don't want to.
There's 2 of us.
Doesn't work well with others. Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah, the giant caveat is that all Viper guys obviously are going to say that. So to the audience listening, some people like the Strike Eagle.
Okay,
I
look
don't
at
know.
Ben-
I know a lot of great Strike Eagle dudes. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
There
And
are,
I've
that's
heard,
true.
I mean, Drago was on one of our bro chats a while ago.
Yeah.
He said like when he was at WIC, which again, weapon like the WIC is an anomaly because everybody there is highly capable, highly trained. And he was like, the Strike Eagle was one of the most capable fighters on the planet when it's a weapons officer in the front seat and the back seat. And so you're like, yeah, like when they literally mind meld and go out there and, you know, like I get
Slay.
it. I have seen more of the opposite. And it's neither the front seater or the back seater is like bad. It's just, they just weren't working well together. And there's more complexity to their planes, you know, or that plane compared to an F-16 because it's mech different.
But when it shows up on station with like an hour and a half of gas and it's taken 5 minutes to read its loadout, you're like, well, they're going to wreck shop. It's like, hey, we got
bombs.
Yeah, we got 20 minutes playtime and we're out of here. So Strike Eagle can wreck house. Here's a little shout out to Swag. So
Oh, nice.
there we go.
Hey.
Crew to jet, crew to jet for
Thanks,
Swag a few
man.
times. I can tell
Appreciate
he's a
that.
humble and BA pilot,
Look at
which
that.
I actually had one of my maintainers from the demo team, Cam, he reached out and said, oh yeah, I'm pretty sure I was stuffing a snowboard in a travel pod for Swag. Awesome dude. So
Oh, that was supposed to be our epic cross country out to Buckley, and we got stuck in what's it, McDowell, I think,
McDonald.
or what's the Kansas City guard?
Yeah. The Topeka. Not Topeka, but the McDonald. Is that what it is?
I know it's somewhere in the middle of
McConnell.
McConnell. That's right. Yep. Samsonite. I was way off.
Yeah, it's way off.
Help us out.
Yeah, we were going to Buckley, and then our stopway point was McConnell, and we wake up to go to continue on to Buckley the next morning. We're going to do this like epic low level, over the snow topped mountains, and then hopefully ski while we were out there. And I think it was Slapshot's jet might have been broken or something like that. Man, ruined the weekend. We had to come back. Yeah, it was such a bummer.
Oh,
So we
slappy.
just hung out in Kansas City or whatever that town was. I can't remember. Wichita maybe.
Yeah, I think it is Wichita.
Yeah, Wichita,
Yeah.
Kansas.
Kansas City
Yeah.
would have been better, but
It's kind of like an epic ski weekend.
Yeah.
Just
a lot
different.
of steep hills in
Yeah.
Kansas.
Yeah. Thought the Rockies would have been a little rockier.
Yeah, John Denver's full of. Yeah, well, actually, Swag, we've never got to fly together, but I know a guy that I believe you've flown with, Tron. He's out there doing the
Tron.
TX, and he and I go way back. Bender and I know him really well.
Yeah,
And yeah, he speaks very fondly of you. Like he's like, oh yeah, I had this question, I had to go talk to Swag, and yeah, Tron's great, and because he is,
man.
he's a smart man.
He is. He's so smart, man. It's so impressive, and it's like, thank God he's like taking all his talent and at least like putting it in, Viper ops and whatnot. Because otherwise, like, I just don't know. In the Air Force, I think now that they're TX and M will take a little bit more advantage of like the Tron asset that the Air Force has right now without like losing him before potentially he like looks for other stuff. But like, man, that dude is super smart and he's super motivated too, which is awesome. So he's done like some pretty incredible things at his short time at Luke already. And I'm stoked that he's starting the F-35 TX like 2 weeks ago or something like that. So yeah, he's super excited. Yeah, he's a great guy.
Yeah, and he's offline provided me some feedback about the F-35. Bender, you never told me these things, so we'll have to work this out later.
I'll tell
with
you
Tron.
anything. It's funny, Tron, for the first couple of days, he was texting me questions about the F-35, and then when I couldn't answer like the 30th question, it just stopped. Obviously, he's going to a different source. I'm like, that's a great question. I've never thought of that.
Yeah, he is. Well, and he's the guy. He's the guy who thinks deeply about things, and he'll ask you, he's like, what's the difference between like your lift vector and your plane of motion? You're like, dude, I don't know.
You asked that?
And but it's like Tron thinks about these things. The rest of us just fly the plane. I saw one of these here, Bender. This one's for you.
The 120 or the 110. So which one is that? Is that a?
I don't know. Yeah,
Block 40?
most people. I've
It's a
noticed a
Block
lot
40,
of people. No, I think that's the 129 because it's the GE F100 is the Block 40 motor, and then so for everybody out there, I don't know if it's like a Jane's thing or if it's like Lockheed. The way fighter pilots refer to the F-16 motors are the 129, the 100, the 220, and the 229. So when we get into like the F100s and stuff, we have no idea which one is which because we don't talk about them that way.
Pull out the checklist and see what it says. Like, I don't know what those first couple numbers mean.
Yeah. So
you got to read the question because this will go out in audio format too.
Oh, that's true.
Oh yeah, that's true. Okay, so is the F-35 overpowered in a within visual range dogfight versus which one is this one? Versus we'll just say the best, let's say Block 50, F-16.
129.
So with equally skilled pilots and similar air loadout. Yeah, I guess so. I mean the EM diagrams, right, are better for the F-16, I think. So the answer to that, if it's just like, say you had it in an AI, whatever, and it was just the perfect modeling of the aircraft capabilities, then the F-16 would probably outmaneuver an F-35 in a dogfight. But there's so much more that goes into a dogfight. So, no, not every time. I think there are definitely F-35 pilots out there that could wreck shop on some F-16 pilots, and there are F-16 pilots that could wreck shop on some of the best F-35 pilots if they are operating the F-16, to its full potential. But the key is that the F-35 kills the F-16 before the F-16 gets into a WVR fight, and the F-16 never even knows it's there. That's the idea.
Yeah, if the F-35 still has missiles. But other than that.
Yeah, well, that's a separate topic. Turns out So today when we checked in, so it was a DCA fight. So it was four Strike Eagles, 4 F-35s on the lane and then my 2 F-35s were gonna join like 15 minutes later, or whatever, in the bullpen. And so when we checked in, we like looked at the states of all the F-35s, and they all had all their missiles. So they had 16 missiles, and then they commit on their first leaf, and they turn around, and they're all Remington in the first 10 minutes of the freaking pool. And I'm like, what just happened? So needless to say, by minute 50 into the 1 hour roll, it was gun only, like just 4 sheets to the wind. Like it was fun, but we lost. The target got bombed. So we need more missiles. Write your congressman. We need more missiles in the F-35.
Sidekick. Yeah. Well, this
Any
is
day now.
yeah. This is Connor. Curious as an applicant to the 194th, what's the community like in Fresno? Well, I don't really know, actually. I mean, the bros there are awesome. You know, I think right now the active duty is hemorrhaging people, and the guard still doesn't have enough people. You know, so the guard and reserve squadrons are still at a 50% manning, and sadly, I don't know what Connor's situation is, but a pilot training hire, so an off the street, not qualified, like I was coming from an F-16 to the F-15, that's a long road. I mean, you're going to go through, just get into the military if you're not already in the military. You're going to go through pilot training. You're going to go through IFF. You're going to go to the B course, and you can expect multiple months of delay between each one of those courses. So it's like a 3+ year timeline to bring someone off the street and to be not even a fully qualified fighter pilot, but even just back in the squadron. The bros are awesome at Fresno. It's great dudes there. And so I'm looking forward to being there. I think the tough part is they're all across the guard for the most part, and reserves. The jets are old. There's not enough people. There's not enough maintainers. It's expensive in California to live, so that's difficult for all people, not to be the high maintenance, pilot complaining about expensive things. But overall, it's tough to keep these jets flying and to do the taskings that are brought down. So the bros are always awesome in the fighter community. That's never a question. But sometimes work is better or worse. Hopefully that answers your question.
I have a random question because I did get an email. This came off another conversation, so we get interesting to get all your opinions, and I think this is really important stuff. It was popcorn. Someone bit off on the fact of the jalapeno popcorn, which is a staple in every single fighter squadron.
Thank
So
you.
do you guys? And this is like asking the wrong group, a bunch of now crusty old majors, about making popcorn. But Vader, I feel like you're gonna have to make popcorn here very
Oh,
soon.
yeah.
So like, you have your recipe down? Like, what's your technique?
Yep. So we'll get in the weeds here. This is going to be a 9-level corn making like demo, I guess. It'll be a wingman demo, which are never good. But either way, so it all depends on your hopper. So each corn machine has a slightly different sized hopper. But what you need to do is figure out the oil level of your hopper and how much corn you're going to inevitably put into this hopper. Because if you put too much oil to corn ratio, you're going to have oily corn and everybody's not going to be a fan. It's not going to pop completely. It's not going to be light and airy. So less oil is almost always better. So if you're like, is that a little too much? You probably want to have a little too little, if that makes sense. So hopper starts, maybe you turn on the agitator, maybe you don't, depends on your corn machine. And then you pour the oil in there and you just let it heat up. I did hear a technique, which I want to know if you guys have tried this in the past. I was an Aviano guy who told me this. You take one of the glass pints and then you fill the jalapenos in there and you microwave them. Now, you're probably thinking, why would you do this if you've never made jalapeno popcorn? We get our corn hot, and what you do is you take a little piece of jalapeno and you throw it into the oil. If it sizzles immediately, your oil is at the right temperature. Then now you've strained all the extra pickling oil off of the jalapenos. You microwave them for like 30 to 40 seconds. Now they're already relatively warm. You pour them in and you get the sizzle. This is where everybody is now going to start like coughing from the vaporized the spice from the jalapeno. You need to make sure the agitator is moving around so you get an evenly cooked jalapeno. This is key because tons of jalapeno is good. but soggy jalapeno in the corn is not good.
Wait. It depends. We'll get
Whoa.
to
Okay, well,
of how
this-
we like the jalapeno. So don't go telling everybody.
that's
you want a
true.
burnt,
Yeah,
crisp
if you
jalapeno.
know, if you like good corn, you don't like soggy jalapenos. So now you start watching your jalapenos as they cook. You pour your corn, which is normally a red solo cup. So normally your oil is, I'd say, a quarter of a solo cup. You do at least a whole solo cup of corn, not the same solo cup, because then all of your oil and your jalapeno and all that stuff is all going to get mixed. And then I am a non-Lowry / salt on the corn prior to popping. That is highly contested, though.
I
So
agree.
this is just raw corn. And then once the edges of the jalapenos start to brown, the corn goes in. So you don't want them not to be brown yet. You don't want them to be overly cooked, because then you're going to overcook your corn or your jalapenos. And then the corn goes in. Then you close the top, and then now you let it go. Depending on where you are, if you're like in South Carolina, you got a lot of humidity in the air, you probably need to open all the doors to the popcorn machine because you're going to get like soggy corn. It'll pop, and then you'll dump it, and then you need to do 2 batches each time. None of this one batch stuff, because it goes way too fast. So I probably caused a lot of consternation for the rest of the people here. Tell me what I said wrong, guys.
Just a couple pro techniques. When the agitator is stirring the jalapenos, the jalapenos will get stuck on the agitator, and then you get charred jalapenos on one side, and then the other side's uncooked. So you don't want that. So you got to like put your little tool, whatever you're using, and scrape the jalapenos, every once in a while off the agitator back into the oil. So you have evenly cooked jalapenos. Mm-hmm. The best jalapeno is you'll have half of them will be like slightly like yellow, crispy, and then the other half are still like juicy, like just perfect jalapenos. That's what you want. No. Anything past the yellow crisp is burnt. It's ridiculous. Throw the popcorn out. Start over.
Bender's making his own batch of popcorn, and then no one else eats it.
Nobody eats. Yeah. Well, some people will. Actually came from my B Corps squadron commander. Gosh, what's his name?
Not Bandel.
I'll get back to that. It was Sham Man. Dang it.
Great guy.
Oh, man. Dang it.
Anyway.
I know what you're talking about.
He was hilarious. But he would, we'd get punished for any charred jalapenos. And so we made them super raw. And it turns out that is the best way to eat the jalapenos.
You want it? It's like a crisp chip where it's like you crunch and it doesn't just like vaporize to where you're like, oh gosh, but it's just like a crunch, like you're eating like a Ruffle in there, but it's nice and spicy. Swag, what do you think?
Dude, I 100% agree with you there, Vader. And the one pro tip as well, just so that way you don't start any fires, because I've almost done this, is once you put the jalapenos in there, and then you walk away for about 5 minutes to just like go do that one thing, and then you completely forget that you were making popcorn, and you start doing 2 or 3 other things, and then hey, you see Rain down the hallway, and you're like, hey, let me chat with Rain for a few minutes, and then that's when somebody, the top 3 or something like that, or the SARM, recognizes that, like, wait, is somebody watching the popcorn machine? Classic.
We've all been there.
Yeah, exactly. Then you start over though. You start over at that point.
Reset.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Yeah, what do you got, Vader?
Oh, I was just gonna say, when Bender and I were in Masawa, we had 5:45 morning briefs for our first go in Masawa, and I show up at 5:15, and the vice wing commander is flying. Awesome guy. Like, he was actually a really cool dude, but he walks into the bar at like 5:20, and he's like, oh, like, we were New Jacks in the squadron, and he's like, New Jack, no corn? And I was like, it's 5:20 a.m., sir. Like, you might want to like get something checked out. You probably got an ulcer or something. Yeah, crazy.
It's not like the healthiest diet, but in a pinch, it's really good, which is like usually 5:15 in the morning, or like 2 a.m. after a debrief or going into a debrief.
Mm-hmm. Forget your lunch that day.
Yeah,
it's like classic.
You get addicted. So even if it's 3-day-old corn, you're just like, this is disgusting, but you're just like, here we go, gotta eat it. So
I'm so ashamed right now, but it's so good. Bender, you bring up a good point, though. You got to watch that, because you remember, like, all those jalapenos, they bunch up around the agitator, and that can be it's no good. You're gonna get uneven cooked jalapenos, although I guess you tend to like that. So
Once some people are a non-agitator because they don't like it because the agitator will break up the jalapenos. So some people will go if you have a nice jalapeno maker, you have a bottom heater, you have the heat, and then you have the agitator. That's like the 9-level popcorn maker. But some people don't like the agitator being on because it'll break them up, and you just use like a little fork or something to keep them mixing.
And then the really good lieutenants will add bacon to the jalapeno popcorn. I've tried it. I never mastered that, but that is, if a fighter squadron makes, we call it infidel corn, then you got to visit. It's awesome.
So the balance there with getting the right amount of oil and everything. There's a lot of variables that go into this.
Yeah, that is not easy to do. The Holloman had one guy. He went out to Masawa, good dude. He would every Friday. It was like a meal. He would cook bacon in there, and he would cook those frozen little hot dog, those corn dog minis. And so, I mean, it was delicious. I wouldn't even bring lunch because I would just do like a couple of scoops of that, and I was like, "Here we go." Yeah, it was wonderful.
Yeah, we had nacho. Remember Nacho Thursdays in Masawa?
I remember getting in trouble.
Yeah, you didn't cook it probably. Yeah, but the punks always made this giant batch of nachos with meat and rotel and cheese. Anyway, I never brought my lunch on Thursdays. It was just nachos all day long.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah, they get pretty nasty after like 7 hours in a slow cooker. But
yeah, one of the IPs, Crack Holmes, really great dude. He's one of those fun, angry guys, and he was like, make the whatever, the cheese. And so I can't, he's like, there's like a plastic bag that you'll put in that'll keep it, so it doesn't get messy. And I couldn't find it. So I just used a trash bag. And he was like, what is wrong with you? I was like, I don't know. It's probably fine. It's a low heat.
Crack. Have you guys ever met Crack Holmes?
Was he? Did he do an exchange? He didn't do an exchange tour to Jordan, did he?
Yes, that's the one. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, because he was there, I guess, while you guys were there.
Yep.
And then we had the overlap because he was like flying with the Jordanians.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dropping GBU 12s, like riding in their back seat in Iraq. I'm like,
yeah. Seriously.
That's spicy.
Yeah.
Enjoy that.
I'm sure. Yeah. We got to get some of his stories. Those are funny. One of the only, I over G'd bombs twice in my F-16 career. And once was with Crack in Jordan, and there's just something about, he just knows how to push the right buttons that just make you lose your mind. But so we were just like doing I don't know what we were doing. It wasn't even a tactical phase of flight, but he had already made me so mad by like our GX. He's like, hook left. I'm like, I'll show you a freaking hook left. And I over G'd in the freaking admin hook turn. He's like, you piece of crap. And I went home and he yelled at me, and it was great. But Crack, I don't know. We need people like Crack. Like, they are the ones that hold the line, like the standard has to be, you have to be good enough for Crack to be cool with you. Otherwise you get out,
Yeah. Yeah. And I flew a ton of our first combat deployment with Crack, and we would just say movie quotes back to one another. It was from Bad Boys 2, the part where Martin Lawrence is like, would the rats eat the rest of them? When Will Smith is like, I found a finger. And because they're at that, like, whatever, that drug lord's house or whatever. And he would just yell that over the like secure frequency to me. I was like, yeah. So that's all he would say back and forth. Hey, I just saw one. Is this it? Yeah. Do you guys know? So who decided jalapeno and popcorn should go together? Does anybody know? I don't, but they're a genius.
I do not.
Yeah, they are a genius. Like, again, it had to be Robin Olds sitting there in the bar one day.
Yeah.
But I mean, it spread like wildfire. I wonder whoever started it, like how fast did that move through the fighter force? Did it take a decade? Did it take one red flag? What would it be? Where did it start? It's a great question.
It's a mystery.
I have been in squadrons. I think this happened in Masawa. I don't even remember, where lieutenants would not make jalapeno popcorn every time. Like they'd be like, oh, first batch of the day, just make regular popcorn. What are you saying? Like, this corn machine makes one type of corn. Like, that's all it does. If it doesn't have jalapenos, it doesn't go in the corn machine. But
yeah, you gotta pay to rent it if you're not gonna put jalapenos in there.
Yeah.
I remember remember the popcorn machine at Columbus, Bender? Like, it was in the BX. It was huge. Like, I mean, massive. Like, they bought it. They never used it. And that's what we were trying to get. It had to be like a $4,000 popcorn machine. It was like something you get in the movies. But I was like, could you imagine if we had that in the squadron? I mean, we've completely destroyed it in a matter of like 3 days,
Yeah.
like
You know what?
unusable for anything else.
Let's
This is
do
like-
a Patreon drive right now. Donate to Rain's Patreon, and we will buy a $4,000 popcorn for the snakes up at Hill, and we'll see what we can do with that
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Could you imagine the best part? Like when you make that, and there's the uninitiated that walks into the squadron, like, oh, popcorn, and they like take a bite, and it's just like, what is this? Coughing, like throwing up, and you're like, you'll be okay.
I like that every corn machine it's seasoned. We'll call it seasoned.
Yeah.
Like it is just gummed up and everything, like the levers stop working because there's so much just oil residue. And you're like, that's how it's meant to be. Like the
Yeah.
corn machine is not meant, it's like a nice like cast iron skillet, you know,
Yeah.
like you need it to season.
It's not going to pass a health inspection, I don't think.
Yeah.
The oil, the heat, that's what kills everything. It's
That's
fine.
right. It's literally all fried. Yeah.
Oh man, there's a couple other ones in here for let's see, advice on getting into the Air National Guard. I think that's a good one. That's a softball one.
Yeah, the somebody posted in the chat one thing I heard about, which one of my buddies actually he used to work there. I don't know if he's still there. But Bogey Dope, BOGI.
Yeah,
What's
thanks,
that?
Bogey Dope. I said they sponsor
yeah.
this podcast. So yeah, so
Nailed it.
yeah, there you go.
I'll take my royalties. But the
Yeah.
but yeah, Bogey Dope apparently helps a lot of people just kind of understand the process. I've heard some guard units, not bagging on Bogey Dope by any means, but sometimes dudes get a little robotic with it because Bogey Dope gives you a very good script to follow, and just kind of what to expect. But just be yourself. The guard, unlike the active duty, they're like hiring a bro. They're hiring a person to be a part of the family. So just hopefully you are a good dude, but also be a good dude. And that'll probably work out better than having, stories. And as everyone listening to this knows, fighter pilots love talking about themselves. So just ask them questions and then they'll just tell stories and they'll be like, who was a great guy, that guy who just kept asking me about me. And it'll go
Right.
just fine.
I do have it linked down below for Bogey Dope if they're on YouTube. But I think that's a really great resource to start. And it's important. Like, I mean, going to the airlines, I paid to go through a training program to kind of cage it. But like they tell you still have to be yourself and not be a robot. But I think having someone like that, like kind of help you through the process. Like, I don't know how to do a resume for a guard unit or like how do you rush, like those type things. That's what it's good for. Or you just need to go like ask a bunch of fighter pilots to talk about themselves. And then one of them will like usher you in. So it takes a little bit of work.
Yeah.
Here's
And
the-
if you're a good dude, it'll probably work out. Cause after I got hired in the guard, my buddy was like, yeah, you had like a 2-year gap in your resume. Like we were going to ask you, but we didn't care. I was like, nice. That worked out.
I wonder how many, my guess is that, well, I don't know. It'd be interesting to know how many hires off the street at least are prior enlisted in a guard or reserve unit. My guess is most of them are. So if you're
Yeah.
young, that's probably your best, honestly, your highest probability of getting hired into a unit that you're interested in is like showing them that you're willing to put in the work by enlisting, which sounds terrifying, but it's not. Like the guard reserve have awesome opportunities to be a part-time enlisted person, kind of support the unit. They get to know you. They'll know you're a bro, hopefully if you are bro before they hire you. And anyway, that's probably the highest PK. So definitely give that a look. But Bogey Dope probably has good advice on that stuff too.
Yeah, I think if you like because now I think like guys who did college while they're enlisted, like in the guard, and then got hired, they already got like their 4 years of time. And granted, it wasn't full time, but there's a lot of ways to crack that nut. But being in the unit and like that's what I think what it comes down to, not having ever been hired by a guard unit, from the street, but they're hiring you for the next 20 years. So like maybe you can build an F-16, but you're a complete douche and no one wants to be around you. Like you're probably not going to get hired. I don't think. Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I think ultimately you probably got to be a good dude and be able to obviously do everything, which is checking all the boxes of AFOQT and GPA, yada, yada, yada. Swag, what do you think the best first base for a Viper punk would be?
Man, the one you're at for sure is honestly like there's really no bad ones. I think they all have their pros in different ways. My first base was Kunsan out of the B course, and man, what a fantastic place to be a punk in a fighter squadron. When you talk about all the stuff like getting into the level of detail that Vader just did on the popcorn, like that's what we had to do like on a daily basis. And so that was awesome. Plus everybody's there on a remote tour. So most of the people don't bring their families out. So what's awesome about it as a young Viper punk is your instructors are literally in the building next door and they're playing video games or doing whatever, just messing around. So like you can easily go over and chat with them about the next flight, chat with them about like future opportunities and stuff like that, whatever you want to do, and just get that mentorship early. So that is an awesome thing. It's like one of the last places, in my opinion, that like is where fighter pilots like the culture that we all think of a fighter pilot as is there. And so Kunsan is an awesome place for that. That was my place. Man, you got great places though. Aviano, which is out in Italy, great place. They do a lot of do a lot of deployments and stuff like that. So if you want that opportunity early, Spangdahlem, Germany, just a great place to be in Europe. They also do the seed mission. Misawa, which I know Vader and Bender can talk to. Great skiing. You're doing the seed mission, and awesome community from what it sounds like. And then Shaw, Rain and I have both spent a decent amount of time there as well as Bender. So all great spots. There's really no bad ones. And some of them are starting to do that TFI. I can't remember what it sounds like, but essentially you'll go and be a part of a guard unit as an active duty personnel. So yeah, no bad ones.
Yeah, and I did the TFI and as my second assignment after Misawa, but a lot of people will do their first assignment there, and yeah, I mean, there's a lot going for the guard. I'd say as a young person, like a first assignment person at the guard, it's just tough because when you're in Misawa, you're at Shaw, you're in Korea, everybody's hungry, everybody's learning the plane, everybody's new. It's very, new to them. But Bender and I can attest, like when you go to the guard, most people already know the plane. A lot of people are part-timers. So you don't have as much of a like group of people hanging out in the vault trying to study because just different focus at that point.
Yeah, that's a good point for sure. That's what I've heard kind of from some other guys.
Boom.
Yeah.
Here's another quick one. Any tips for people wanting to go to 38s and try to become an aggressor or compete for an exchange program with the Navy with the Growlers? Well, one, if you go to the Navy, you're going to be landing on boats. I don't know why you'd want to do that, but.
Does a Growler land on the boat?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It does?
They've got
Yeah,
some
Boats.
some land-based squadron and then a decent amount of, I think the majority of them are boat-based squadrons though.
But I thought the Growler specifically?
Yeah.
The E-18G? Oh, okay.
I think the
'Cause I
ones
thought
that go out to Misawa are land-based though. They're land-based squadrons.
Yeah.
I like
Sure,
that.
they all did, but who knows? I would say, like, my take on this is a pretty weird career path because, all right, you go 38s and you're going to go to a fighter and then go into an aggressor or I guess compete for exchange program. So you go to T-38s, you're going to go to a fighter, do one assignment in a fighter squadron, maybe two assignments in the fighter squadron, and then go be an aggressor would be kind of a normal career path / at that break point, maybe, one or two assignments in your first fighter, then applying for these exchanges. So I don't know, it used to be like a portal opened up or they'll pop up with a message like, a Growler exchange with the Navy or go fly, with the Australians, and you apply for it and it goes up. And again, I think it always be like right place, right time, right qualifications to go out there and do that. But the 38s would just be a stepping stone. So I might be reading that incorrectly. So I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah. Morgan, do you know that the Growler is a two-seater? There are two people in that airplane. I just want to make sure you're tracking, or you make any decisions you can't take back.
You don't get your radar; they get it in the back.
God, and it's a sweet radar. I did get a backseat ride.
Yeah.
It was freaking awesome, and the display was awesome. Yeah, you learn. Well, first you got to get to the 38. Once you get to the 38, then you're going to learn so much about what you want to do. Like Rain wanted to be an A10 pilot back in the day. I wanted to be. I'm not even going to admit what I wanted to be back in the day, but I had an uncle who flew B1, so he was like, "The B1 is awesome," and it is.
Oh,
Yeah, and he was like, "You want to have a crew. You want to like work together as a team." Like, pff, Uncle's awesome, super smart guy, but he missed the boat on that one for sure. So you kind of learn as you go. But after a couple, it didn't take long teaching people in UPT to realize that any ride with anybody in the airplane with me was undesirable. Like, get out.
When fighters still operate as a team, you just all have your
Yeah.
own airplane. Like
Yeah.
it's not like any of us
It's not
go and
shared.
we're like, yeah, I'm going to go to combat by myself. Like no, like there's 2 or 4 of us together. I actually got yelled at in 38s because I put like fighters, FAPE, and then I went like lifestyle. I went like C-17s and I did that stuff. And then one of the guys was a B1 dude, and he was like, "You need to rethink your priorities." And I was like, "Yes, sir." No, list didn't change.
Thanks.
They've been
Yeah.
rethought. Yeah.
Pick one more here, maybe 1 or 2 more, unless you guys got something else. Why this probably a little bit more of a breakdown in this question, but why is the Air Force not invested into an offensive tactical jamming platform fighter parentheses the way the Navy has with the Growler? Is it because the F-35 EW is that good?
All right. Well, Bender, I'll protect you. You can weigh in after I hop in here. I think the Air Force has bought things and they just don't seem to work. Because remember, the Growler is not new. The Growler is a new plane carrying old pods, which were on the Prowler, the family model, the weird. I don't even know what it's supposed to look like. It's got windows. It's got windows like a helicopter, but it's a jet. And but they just took the pods off that, threw them on the EA-18G. So that's not even a new jammer. The DoD has really just not done a great job of onboarding like new jamming platforms. And then you have to think about jamming in like multiple things. Like, is it self-protect or are you protecting other people with your jamming? So there's a lot of considerations. Swag, you got anything to add to that? You probably know the deep dark secrets of it all.
Oh man, not sure. Yeah, I'm not quite sure why the Air Force hasn't. I know we work a lot with the Growler though, a bunch of times. Like every time we went to a red flag out at Nellis, and so some of these like large training exercise where it's mostly Air Force guys. Like the one Navy unit that comes and shows up is a Growler unit, and they're usually one of those land-based ones. And I know, you guys at Misawa would fly with the Growlers quite a bit up there, and they've integrated with some of the Air Force assets quite a bit. So I kind of think we almost like, in a way, like use the Navy's Growlers, if you will, and like decide not to buy more of our own. But probably because we never had some to start with, that we've kind of gone away from it. Although I guess like some of the older F-10, can't remember which one.
F-111s probably.
Yeah.
Was Capes for the F-16, so AESA radar, I think it was AL-213 jamming pod. It's supposed to be all integrative, so it would offensive or defensively jam appropriately, so you wouldn't like lose your radar like everyone's used to, like a 131 pod or 184 pod. But didn't like Capes got killed by McCain, but I thought like M8 was gonna now be like a whole rewire of the jet and then integrate that so you could offensively jam or defensively jam seamlessly. I don't know.
That does sound correct. And I think the biggest thing is what will actually end up getting funded for the F-16's new EW system. I don't think anything's like completely funded from what I last checked. It kind of changes daily though, so I don't know what the most current data is for what our next set will be like. Yeah.
Well,
But
there's one thing that's certain: the check is in the mail. So
Yeah.
you can count on that.
we need more money.
Yeah.
That's ultimately, if we had more money, we'd probably buy one as well.
Did you see the first Block 70s came off the line in South Carolina
Yeah.
this past week, which is